told me to share some of our work in the Caribbean and what implications could this potentially have for the Pacific. So basically, this presentation is about that. Because we've been talking about technology such as low-cost laptops and tablets as well as mobile devices. These are being increasingly deployed across schools in the developing world, and which is why the OLPC has more or less been superseded by these lower-cost tablets. 2 years ago, when the Ministers of Education, Commonwealth Education Ministers met, we gave them $70 tablets, which we had sourced straight from Shenzhen. And they were excellent in terms of, all the kind of provisions that you could use in a pedagogical classroom environment were available on those. And they were quite sturdy, so they would actually almost be as sturdy as an OLPC device. So ICT, as we all know, can play a role as more options are available to various communities. Mobile phones are the fastest growing sector. Community radio has had a second coming in many countries, including in India, Bangladesh, Nigeria, and so on, where governments are now giving licenses. Earlier, governments didn't give licenses because of political reasons, but these become, our kind of option for the last mile connectivity. But it's not just about access to ICT. There are other issues of connectivity, as Professor Rajesh Chandra mentioned, relevant content, especially in local languages and culture, which determines who can or cannot have access, such as women and marginalized communities. And since we are talking about relevant and inclusive education, I think one of the big things which we are missing out is local languages, because that already excludes a lot of people. In addition, we have issues of economic viability, such as the questions of who will support the running costs of the system. And we can't always depend upon donors and the sustainability of the funding. So as the UNDP report points out, and I'll quote this because it's important, the belief that there is a technological silver bullet that can solve illiteracy, ill health, or economic failure reflects scant understanding of real poverty. And to further illustrate and endorse this point, let me quote Professor Tim Unwin, who said that ICT have the potential to increase equality or to reduce them depending on the social, political, and economic context within which they are introduced. So when we deploy technology, we have to be very careful that we are not actually increasing the digital divide or the inequalities. So technology mustn't become an exclusionary or a kind of approach that keeps people out rather than reasoning. Now we do know that ICTs enable change. They add value to develop the development process. But by themselves, they do not create the development process. And ICT strategies are only effective and sustainable and worth the effort if they're integrally linked to broader, more comprehensive development, education, and poverty reduction strategies. So this is the broader context, to link it to the theme of what we are discussing, relevant and inclusive education. And now let me come to the 3 concrete examples of COL's work in the Caribbean relating to capacity building, policy development, and policy implementation. I will then look at the benefits of ICT use and conclude with the implications that this might have for the Pacific countries. Let us take the capacity building first in Guyana. As you know, Guyana is a developing country with only 28% of its people living in urban areas. Retaining qualified teachers in the system is a challenge, and less than half the teachers are fully trained. In addition, only 27% of the population has access to the internet. So in order to address the challenges related to teacher development and retention, the government of Guyana has elaborated an ICT professional development strategy for teachers to provide a comprehensive framework for the effective use of ICT in teaching and learning. Am I doing the wrong slide? No. Now this was done in collaboration with UNESCO, the Commonwealth Secretariat, COL and Microsoft. This is the UNESCO ICT competency framework for teachers, which became the guiding document to develop core competencies among teachers. And these are three. They relate to technology literacy, knowledge deepening, and knowledge creation. So what COL did is this: COL developed additional resources to facilitate the implementation of the UNESCO CFT and the development of the core competencies. It has developed several resources, and I've all listed here. I don't need to read them out. But of special interest might be Commonwealth Computer Navigator Certificate, which is a free resource for IT literacy. Plus, the other important resource to remember is the ICT CFT Toolkit, which is the Commonwealth Certificate for Teacher ICT Integration. Don't let the word Commonwealth put you off, it's for everybody, it's an OER. And this puts together all the tools in the Guyana project. We started with Guyana. This includes readiness surveys, curriculum mapping tool, sample professional development strategies, and links to relevant course materials. There is a narrative which explains the relevance and significance of the resource and suggests the steps required to implement the CFT based on the Guyana case. COL is in the process of transferring this model to 5 Caribbean countries and 1 country, Lesotho in Southern Africa. As COL does not certify the work, because we are not a university, we work in partnership with local institutions to offer the credentials to teachers who undergo this training. Now this is the Commonwealth Certificate for Teacher ICT Integration is an advanced course for teachers and school leaders in integrating ICT into school management and teaching and learning. This was localized for Guyana and consists of in-service and pre-service courses. These were all developed using open education resources and are themselves available as OER. And the real strength of this Guyana model is that it's replicable and can be used in other regions. So this is one of the first things which we've done. Now, what are the elements of this model? It's important to have the ministry and the institutions on side. COL tries to implement the CCTI in conjunction with the overall ICT teacher professional development strategy in any country. The curriculum of this CCTI is aligned to the competencies identified in the UNESCO competency framework for teachers. OER are identified, capacity of master trainers built in the development, adaptation and use of OER, something which might be a need in this region as well. And the key goal is to develop local capacity and not create dependency on outside experts. The first step in implementation is to train mentors who complete the program themselves and then mentor others. Continued engagement with the Ministry of Education in each country is critical to maintain and build a sense of responsibility for the successful implementation of the program. Country stakeholders, especially the targeted teacher education institutions, should be included in the localization and development of new modules of the CCTI, because this is always a work in progress and you need more and more resources. This will serve to increase the sense of ownership and levels of interest in the CCTI by the stakeholders. The value of a face-to-face pre-module orientation is then combined with a distance learning component so that it's much more cost-effective. To give you the example of the Civil Water College in Guyana, they found the use of OER a definite advantage, which helped them save costs and improve quality. The adoption and use of OER has been a positive outcome of this project and one that has implications for system-wide change within the country. Another major outcome was that these two institutions, the Cyril Potter College and the University of Guyana, who were not really talking to each other before, were brought together under the National Implementation Plan, and a net benefit was that they began to cooperate. And what Professor Rajesh Chandra was saying is that cooperation is the way of the future. We will not be able to do what we can by ourselves. Now, the success of this The success of this strategy depends on catalyzing appropriate partnerships. The focus is on involving local stakeholders and adapting materials that are suitable for specific contexts. For example, the CCTI is not only available online, but is also available on CD-ROM. Advocacy is very important to generate awareness about the benefits of the program, and equally important is to track the outputs and outcomes achieved. So what did we achieve? What were the benefits of this CCTI? There are more trained teachers in ICT within the Guyanese system. The teachers are now using OER, which is critical again to the success of bringing costs down and improving quality. Participation in the project led two institutions to review and align their teacher education curricula. And finally, it encouraged, as I said, collaboration within the country institutions as well as externally with outside partners. Now let me share the second development, which is policy development in the Caribbean. One recent example is Antigua and Barbuda, where an OER policy has been integrated into their ICT in education policy. This has been approved by Cabinet, and the ministry officials are moving to the next level of implementation. And such draft policies have been developed in 4 of these countries, which I mentioned: Grenada, Grenadines, and St. Kitts and Nevis. And the advantage, the advantage is that, when we, what does that mean? 5 seconds or 5 minutes? 5 minutes, okay, good. I'm nearly done. What this means is that as we are developing ICT and education policies in the Pacific, this may be one element to consider to integrate OER into that ICT and education policy. And one positive outcome of the policy development is that the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States have agreed to work with COL to develop open textbooks. This means using the maths curriculum of the Caribbean Exams Council to develop open math textbooks, which are being piloted already in Antigua and Barbuda. And hand in hand with this initiative is the training of teachers and administrators organized by COL. So it's not just enough to have content, but also train the relevant stakeholders so that there's a holistic approach. And this could also be of interest that COL commissioned the development of a prototype for the open textbooks. This is a platform which combines a Canvas, which is open source, learning management system with a Drupal content management system. So it brings those two together. So it's a new development. The senior secondary maths curriculum with identified learning outcomes has been uploaded on the content management system and can be accessed through the learning management system. Student self-assessment forms a part of this open textbook package and can be loaded on those tablets when they give it to students, so they can have these open textbooks which are entirely online but can also be printed off if required. So the benefits of these 3 initiatives have been curricular reform, more trained teachers and better use of ICT for teaching and learning, and innovative pedagogic practices. So what implications do these initiatives have for the Pacific? One, we can adopt and adapt existing models and resources, for example, the CCTI materials, open textbooks prototype. 2, integrate OER into ICT and education policies rather than develop separate policies. 3, take a holistic approach to technology adoption. align policy and capacity building before making decisions about the kind of technology we are going to buy. And 4, invest in technologies that are available, affordable, and accessible. The 3 A's. So in conclusion, in order to ensure that technology integration is sustainable, we need to place the emphasis on the people rather than purely on technology. This was mentioned earlier by our colleague from Samoa. As we know, knowledge is a social product emerging as an interface of machine, individual, and society. Learning is a process of knowledge creation rather than information consumption. And the learner can be an active producer rather than passive consumer of content. So the question for us is, how can we deliver, now let me come to the 3 C's, how can we deliver education that excites curiosity, develops creativity, and instills confidence? The 3 C's, curiosity, creativity, and confidence. And how can technology help? Thank you.